Okay, I'll just start the recording then.
Yeah.
All right.
Teacher fellow GPT execs.
Yeah.
Yo, people in the back, it's starting. Hold on, they're not paying attention.
This way, that's the before. I guess I'm doing something wrong now.
Especially because they're trying to make people learn. And teacher will be the programmer.
I fine.
Bag and
That's.
Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
We're recording. Okay. That was awkward. I'm going to shift. You can just alt tab. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my last session as a GPT exec. I'm going to die of old age next week.
No.
Here.
Yeah, let's go.
Age. Now, we're here today to discuss the many, many mess ups all of us have had with GitHub over the last year and what not to do next year. Let's start off with today's content. One, GitHub, how to not mess up next time and not suffer. Branch discipline, main and dev branches. Please name your branches properly. Dealing with regressions. Unreal hates you. And I'm not kidding, Unreal actually hates you. Why individual developer branches should make you resign as a programmer. I will not forgive you. I want that understood. I really will not forgive you. I will haunt you all beyond the grave. Now, first things first. I see people often are, reluctant to make branches. That is not the way. It is better to have too many branches than too little branches, and we'll see why in a moment. First off, this is standard industry practice. Every feature must get its own branch. You cannot survive with having a branch named after you. No, we are not going to have an Ethan branch or a Jaden branch or a John branch or a Hari branch. We have branches for the feature. If it is something like your player walking system, then name it player walking system. If it's the enemy AI basic system, name it that. Don't name it John's AI. Thank you. And an example of the number you should have is right here. This is less than half of what I have at the moment. There's about 51 bit branches currently, and I expect that even though there's a week left to GameCon, there's going to be at least 5 more. Thank you for the slow look. I appreciate it. Now, why do it this way? The answer is very clear. You can track and pinpoint each and every change. Why is this important? Because someone's going to mess up. That is human nature, that is programming nature. You plan according to it. You plan for it, and then you can prevent it. Now, should a feature branch completely corrupt, and I know this has happened at least once to at least one of you. You, Ethan. Last week?
Yeah.
Tell me what happened.
Basically, we have an AI programmer working on a new enemy type for the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then he pulled stuff from main, and then all of the models just exploded. Now the enemies looked like coal, and it was just...
It makes no sense,
It
right?
made no sense, no.
Realistically, that shouldn't have happened with how GitHub works, but it happened anyway, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. That's the fun part. These things are almost sentient, and they like screwing with you. Right? Now, if it completely corrupts this way, you can recover it. You can salvage something for a build. And that's what's most important. Having some of a feature is better than having no feature at all. Conversely, sometimes you need to bin a feature. Sometimes it's utter trash or you've gone with another path. Now, you can't exactly do that if it's really integrated into the core of your systems, and that was 50 merges ago. That's not going to be fun. You cannot revert that ever. Right? Now, moving on from that. The MK system. This is something I personally sworn by this last year. Before this, I never used it, and I regret not using it. Now, we'll start with the Mark 1. This can be considered your paper prototype or a basic engine implementation. This is the shittiest way to do it. What do you do here? You write down all the needs of your system. Give me an example, one of you. Give me something more complex.
Quest system.
Quest system. Break it down for me. What are the needs of it?
Basically, you're going to have a manager that's going to track multiple different quests.
Yeah.
There's going to be quests which will have different quest stages.
Okay.
Maybe they need different parameters that need to be met in order for stages to advance.
Okay.
Things like that.
So advancement system, management system, and the progression system. Those are three subsystems of this one system. What is the easiest but crappiest way to do this?
I mean, how I would do it is I would just have the manager, and then that would handle all the advancement logic, all of the managing logic of a quest, and then you would have another class that is just like a quest, and then another class that's like a quest stage, and then the class has multiple quest stages that you can just assign different things to. Maybe you can have enums.
Enum's bad way to do it, but technically a way to do it.
Yeah.
Right? That's the fastest way to do it.
Yeah.
That's what Mark 1 is supposed to be. If you have a detection system, it doesn't matter if it's conducting 1,000 raycasts a second. That's horrible. But no one cares. This is just to see if the feature is feasible, to test it out, to see if this is something you want to continue with in your game. That's Mark 1. This is always going to be binned, but it's always good to keep track. Mark 2. This is where you take that same system and simplify it. What is the most efficient way of doing this standalone, contained within itself? This system is not meant to interact with anything else. So a detection system can go from breakcasts to something like a bounding box or an AI sense node. Okay? This is not meant to touch any other system, just work on its own and nothing else. Now, Mark 3 is when you start adding considerations for other systems. How does this interact? That means taking your Mark 2, making additions, making changes. Now, after this comes Mark 4. That's your final version. You don't go past that. That's when you've cleaned up everything, optimized everything. That's it. If you need a Mark 5, you fucked up. Bin that. Redo it. It's going to be faster than you trying to go back and correct something. Now, moving on to main and dev branches, or as I like to call them, main and tester, tester 2 electric boogaloo, tester 3 would-be, and so on and so forth. Why have these? Now, people often treat main as the place to merge. This is wrong. Please don't do this. Main is meant for stability, something that you can release, something you can make immediately a build up of just in case it's an emergency. It does not matter if main is behind XYZ branch, or even if it's like 5 commits behind. That is the stable version of all of your branches merged together. Now, for anything that you don't trust, especially when it comes to systems that often interact with each other, key example, a quest system. If a quest system works with, say, a resource system, how often does that break?
I would say fairly regularly, unless you have it coupled through like maybe an event system, just to like send event logic to the quest system.
Precisely. If you have something like that, that's what a tester branch is for. I can personally attest to that. That saved the rest of my branches because now tester 1 is inaccessible to me permanently. I want tester 2, and as of this weekend, probably tester 3. Right? Now, continued with that. Branches too can be utterly corrupted, and we've already touched upon this. Similarly, engine branches, and anyone that's worked with Fmod or WISE knows exactly what I'm talking about. Something that interferes directly with your engine, such as either of those two cases, because they replace the native audio system. These can mess you up. In fact, it messed my game up completely, and I made the mistake of merging it into main, like a fool. You know what happened to me? If you open up my main, a WISE folder still exists even though it shouldn't. I removed every trace of it, but it still exists. Same thing with my SLN file. I made the mistake of not adding it to my get ignore originally, and now it still commits each time, even though it's in the get ignore.
No, actually, that wasn't the get ignore issue. That was because we didn't remove it from the I forget what it was. It was like git rm something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the point. It's not something you immediately think of. It's going to cause you pain.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Additionally, I highly recommend this. Have a mirror backup of main. It can be like a week behind. But just in case if something horrifically goes wrong, as in someone accidentally merges to main and corrupts it. And this has happened. You have a backup now. And that becomes your new main. You can just change it. Now, dealing with regressions. Every programmer is going to deal with this at least once, if not 100 times. Actual numbers closer to 1,000. Any testers? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm counting all of you. Screw it. You have two options. Now, this is the option you should do. Manually to go back to each change, revert it, see where you went wrong. Chances are it's your fault. Let's be real. But sometimes, and especially if it's the night before your review, personal experience, you ain't got the time. Here's what you do instead. You can either load up each of the other branches, see what's missing, and manually recreate the regression. This is tedious, but sometimes the fastest way. Your other option is to recreate your build branch outright. This system allows you to do that because now since you've isolated each feature to its own branch, you can just mishmash all of them together to create something stable, and it won't mess up. You have so many backups. Others issues: git ignore, stop ignoring. As Bilal touched on previously, even though that was git RMD, this can happen, and there's no guarantees. Always plan for something to go wrong. Now, Unreal. This has been my pain for the last year. And if you've used Unreal this year, or ever once at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And the main issue is blueprints. You won't find the same issue that much in C++. But how Unreal says blueprints is it has a blueprint file, and then each individual node is its own file. Except they don't really name it. They give it a serial number. We're humans, we can't read serial numbers. It will never make sense to us. But unfortunately, that's what the majority of stuff is coded on. 90% of use cases use blueprints, and you really don't need C++. Now, there's no way to fix this. No, you're just going to have to deal with it. So here's how you deal with it. Isolationist policy. Right? Bad for governments, great for programmers. Isolate every single piece of code that you possibly can, and be extra with it. You can isolate within an isolation. Where is that picture? There it is. That is inside my player system right here. In fact, there it is. Blueprints, interfaces, and inputs, all isolated. Do not follow the example of your GDW tutorials. That's just to get you started. That's not good practice. Thank you. Now, why do this? Scripts and files being isolated means that each programmer is only working on the one thing. You don't have people dipping into the same pot. You don't have merge conflicts. Now, additionally, something I really need to stress, especially to you lead programmers, always keep track of what someone's working on. Always communicate with your team members which files you're working on, which scripts you're working on. The more you do this, the less people actually mess with what you're doing, and you won't have merge conflicts. Again, this is mainly for blueprints, but this is still good practice regardless. Key example. Before review 1, I had 45 merge conflicts that I had to resolve in 8 hours. This was my first time doing this with Unreal. Oof. That's when I implemented this system. Now, even though Unity doesn't really have the same issues because it works in C#, that's not an excuse. As we already mentioned, industry standard is feature branches. You are going to use them. Additionally, different scenes aren't enough. Human error is always going to be a possibility. And that's what you need to focus on. Take the strain away from the one person managing your GitHub, make their lives easier. Now, why developer branches are a bad idea. You've seen me harp on this. I will let all of you take guesses.
Well, for one, you don't know what changes were made in what branches. The branches aren't indicative of any features or anything.
Got a good answer. Anyone else? John.
You can't isolate features as well, kind of.
You know what? I'll answer it for you. Huh? Of course, as Jaden brought it up, you can keep track of feature changes, especially since you will likely be working on multiple systems as one person. You can't revert changes either. That's where your mess up lies. Mergers become an utter mess. Please don't ever do this. I recognize that most of you who are used to doing this from first or second year. Please do not continue this as future practice. Mistakes were made several times. Now, here's an example of what not to do. I will let Jaden explain this one.
So it's
Get out there.
all right. So-
hard to read.
It's a little hard to read,
You can zoom in.
but can I do it?
Yeah, control scroll wheel. Never mind. Escape and control. Escape and then control zoom in.
It's in
No.
the center of.
Whoop.
Yeah.
Up. There we are.
Well, okay. It's a little hard to read, but if you notice here, there's the name of a developer and 31 next to it. That person has had 31 individual branches to their name because our GitHub is kind of broken. You cannot pull from other branches in our repo. You have to make a new branch every time you want to make changes. He has a ton of
Pull.
no. If you pull, Unreal will break.
Wait, what?
Unreal hates you.
Yeah.
What kind of witchcraft?
Yeah.
I could not tell you. I only have 3 branches, but half of them got deleted too because we cleaned them up a bit. But there's still 31 individual branches. Do not do that. That is a bad idea.
Now, Jaden, which branch number did you make your player system in?
I don't think that branch exists anymore.
Dang. Isn't this
Oh,
the
actually,
same?
no, it would be programming. One of the programming branches.
Oh my god.
Oh,
I heard it, Jaden, 4 months ago. There it is. And didn't you also make multiplayer in this game?
No, we didn't do multiplayer.
Oh, you got lucky. You got lucky.
Yeah.
You got lucky. The moment you start dealing with more complex systems like multiplayer, this get 300 times worse at minimum. If it doesn't, I will eat my cane.
I still can't believe you can't pull. That is
Yeah,
insane.
It's
that
bad.
is absurd.
That is unreal.
I can't entire branch anymore. Tester 1 is gone.
I mean, that's nothing compared to not being able to pull ever.
Oh, that's the same with that one.
That's not the only one.
You can't open it.
That's all.
That's not one branch.
Yeah.
The whole project.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
don't even know how you get that.
Yeah, no. I was working on a new tutorial recently, and I tried pulling from his most recent branch. He's like, no, don't pull, it'll break. Just make a new branch.
But that's fundamentally the point. Each of us has had these experiences. This was not me harping at all of you. This was me highlighting all of my mistakes over my 4 years in this program. I have done each of these things. First and second year, I had developer branches. That was a mistake. Third year, I didn't do feature branches properly. I just named it whatever I wanted. I also just some of my commits were blurg, some eldritch language. You know, as at one point I might as well have written Azrock Metrium Zintos. It would have made more sense. I couldn't keep track of what changes I made where. I in fact named one of those branches aptly Hurry Moment because I messed it up so much. Right? It was only in my 4th year that I've actually started correcting all of these. And now I'm heading into the industry, so that's going to be a fun time. I still have bad practices. I encourage you, do not be a hurry. Keep discipline up. It will save your life. It will save your other programmers. If you're a non-programmer, still follow these. You will make your programmers' lives easier because they're the ones cobbling your systems together. They're the one set of people you do not want to piss off. Now, let me make this clear. You can have bad artists and still make a game. You can have bad designers and still make a game. But the programmers are the ones making that game. Granted, they can't make things without a design or art. But when it comes to assembly, if you have bad programmers, your art and your design just aren't getting in. Please make their lives easier. They're already under a lot of stress. Give them a little head pat, pat. Yeah? And above all, don't make these mistakes. Don't be me. Be better. I believe in all of you. And I will continue to believe in all of you as you go through your journeys in this program. Thank you. And goodbye. Change the world.
Love you, Hardy.
I will not die of old age.